While I was living with my dad, the first year, he would put the gun to my head, especially when he wanted me to perform oral on him. And he would tell me that if I didn't do it, he was going to shoot me in the head. So I'm 12 years old, being trafficked and given meth over and over again. And they started taking pictures of my body. They didn't even explain to me anything. They were just like, all right, I need you to take your clothes off. And they just started taking pictures of me like I was some piece of evidence. On my birthday, I ended up overdosing on cocaine. And that was the first time I experienced my first death. So I was like hungry for the word. I was desperate to find salvation. I was desperate to get rid of all this dark stuff that was happening to me. So I believed anything that would make me like feel like something was out there.
Welcome back to the Supernatural Truth, where you will hear the ultimate truth finally answering your question: who really is God? With the evidence and steps to follow him. If this is your first time, I'm your host, Cheryl. Welcome to the podcast. Today, you're going to meet our guest, Naniece. She has one of the most astounding testimonies. She was essayed as a child at the age of 6. She's seen her father do heinous things, including drinking blood and child sacrifices. She died thrice, yes, flatlined, left her body 3 times. But today she's here. It's a miracle that she's alive, and she's here to tell us how she's alive and how she is sane and how she has a happy family today. She's married, she has kids, and there's one person to whom she attributes this change, this transformation to. She met God. She's going to tell us her journey. Naniece, welcome to the podcast. We're so honored to have you here. So wonderful to have you here, Sister Naniece. It's just such a privilege, to be able to share your journey. We're so happy you're alive. You're here to tell us the truth. So go ahead, sister. Start from the beginning of your life, which was pretty tumultuous, and how did you finally get to where you are today? Take us through your journey, please.
Well, I was born in Mexico and I was migrated here as a baby. I have no recollection of the life that happened over the border, but I know that when I was here up to the age of 5, I was living with both my grandparents. And my mom was like in and out of the picture, but she wasn't really like there in the picture as a mom. She was like doing her own thing, and my father started to come around. And at a very young age, though, I kind of like learned what their lifestyle was, even though then I didn't know what it was. Now that I'm an adult, I kind of know what it is. My mother hung out with a lot of influencers that had a lot of money, that were around a lot of drugs and alcohol, always flashing gold necklaces, diamond, money. That's the lifestyle that my mother introduced me to at a very young age. And the same thing with my dad. I didn't understand like what all this money and diamonds and gold meant, but it meant something to them, obviously. I know that my godparents also came from money and bad influences as well. And soon enough, my grandmother was like not tired of us, but she told my mom, because it was me and my older brother, she told my mom that she didn't need to raise us, that it was her job to raise us. And if she didn't come pick us up, she was going to give us to my dad. So my mom never came to pick us up because she was actually with another person. She found another man while she was legally married to my dad, and she got pregnant. So she never came to pick my brother and I up. So we went to go live with my dad when I was 5 years old. And while I was living with my dad the first year, I do remember my mom coming to see us. But that one time that I saw her, her and my dad got into a physical altercation that ended up into a fist fight. There was a lot of blood everywhere. And my dad told us to get in the house. He grabbed his gun and he said he was going to kill my mom. He started shooting at her and at her boyfriend. And I didn't see her after that for a long time. So the journey of living with my dad began there. He was a single father and he took care of us. He was a security guard. He worked at the airport. He worked, private events. And he also was like in the black market. My father sold drugs, weapons, organs. He was, in a influenced by other bad people also. Again, I didn't know it was bad until I grew up and I was older. And obviously, he went to prison for all these things. And so my dad was a single parent. He was also very promiscuous, so he had a lot of women around. He paid prostitutes. He had his main girlfriend, which was a white lady who would come watch us most of the time, but he had like different women around all the time. And during one of the times that my dad was off working in the nighttime, I was about 6 years old. He had one of our neighbors watch my brother and I. They were these African American people. And this lady was in her living room. I'm older now, so now I know what she was doing. She was drinking beer and doing cocaine. She let us sleep in the room with her two kids, one kid that was my age and her older son who was 17. Well, the 17-year-old kid ended up sexually assaulting me and making my brother watch. My brother's only 1 year older than me, so he was about 7 years old. And my brother tried to help me, but the 17-year-old kid physically beat up my brother. And he told us that if we were to say anything to anybody, that he would do what he did again. Um, so we never said anything to anybody. All I know is that when I was 6 years old, I was violated and I felt terrified. I felt broken because what he did to me was very painful. And a 6 year old doesn't understand anything about the body anatomy. I just knew that I was hurt. And so after that happened, I kind of just like started to change. And you would see it in pictures. Like I went from being a happy child, smiling all the time, to just like a frown on my face all the time, especially just because I was so confused about what was going on in my life. Like I had no mother. And then the stuff that my dad had us around, he had a very confused religious background too. He didn't know like what he believed in. He practiced Santeria, he practiced witchcraft, he was a Muslim at some point, and then he wanted to become a Christian. And one thing he never said he was a Catholic. But it was really confusing growing up with him. But he drank a lot. My dad drank a lot, and I do remember growing up seeing him always have needles around. So I always asked myself if my dad was a heroin addict or if he shot up meth like I did. I always thought it was just because of his insulin, because of his diabetes, but I think it was a lot more than just that. Um, so then his mom is around us too, his mom, so she's my grandma. And this woman was very abusive, so she's always like hitting us and stuff. And I remember there was an incident where my dad was in jail. He went to jail a lot because of domestic violence. And so he was in jail that night. My grandmother's watching us and she's beating us so bad. And I remember my brother and I hiding underneath the bed, trying to get away from her. And it was raining that day, and there was thunder and there was lightning. And I remember lightning struck our backyard and it started a fire. And I remember in that moment, that was the first time I had an experience seeing an angel. I believe it was an Ophanim angel, and it appeared to me, and I wasn't afraid. Um, I was not afraid. I was more afraid of my grandmother than I was of that angel. And then I heard a voice tell us to get out. I mean, obviously my brother didn't hear it, but I heard it, and the fire was just spreading. And the voice again got louder, and it was just this beautiful being, like a fire and emeralds, and it was just all these eyes around it, and it just like was pulling me like towards it. It was gravitating me towards it and telling me to get out like from underneath the bed. At this point, there's like black smoke everywhere, and so we start crawling out, and then the firefighters find us, and they rescue us. And so after that incident happened, I started to have more like um, I had the ability to like hear things and see things, and it was like good and bad things, And my grandmother would always say that I was crazy or whatever, and my dad also would, like, because again, like I said, they exposed us to a lot of things, like um, they would do these rituals, and they would, sacrifice, human beings, bodies. There was a lot of drinking of blood and weird stuff. So I feel like in part that's kind of what opened up that portal of spiritual stuff happening to me. And it took that veil off where I could, see other stuff. So my dad started to kind of believe me when we were off doing one of his transportations of his body organs somewhere else. And I had asked him to pull over because I had a premonition, a vision of a car accident about to happen. And I saw the car accident happen. I saw the color of the car, and I heard the people screaming. I heard the tires, and I heard us crash.
Naniece, I have a question because a lot of viewers at this point are probably wondering, how did that happen? Can you just build some context around before this car crash accident, but with your dad eating, human organs and drinking blood, a lot of people don't believe this happens at all. So can you give some context under what circumstances was this happening? Why was it happening? Do you have any recollection, any idea about that?
So we used to go to this ranch in Rosarito, which is in Mexico, and that's where the rituals would happen. There's a lot of kids that get abducted, a lot of kids who go missing, a lot of kids who are not wanted. And a lot of it is like the way my dad would explain it to us. He tried to like justify what he was doing, like it was for a good purpose. This kid is needed because there's another kid who's dying who needs his lungs, who needs his liver, who needs his kidneys. So this is for a better purpose. Nobody wanted that kid. He was just wandering on the streets. So I saved this kid's life and I'm going to save other kids' lives. So that's how my dad would justify what they were doing, right? And me, I'm little, so I was like, okay, so he's saving people's lives or whatever, right? So they would harvest the organs, obviously sell them in the black market, save other people's lives, I guess. But also, there was my grandmother would also explain that part of these rituals, because she did a lot of witchcraft and her husband did voodoo, it was like this is what's going to keep you protected. They say that the people who are involved in this lifestyle are very highly protected spiritually because of these rituals that they have, because the stuff my dad did was dangerous. And I always wondered how come he never got caught, how come nothing ever happened or whatever, right? So they would harvest the and the worst part about it was too that that's how they would transport drugs from there to here. So they would get a kid my age and my brother's age that looks similar to us. And there was a point that my dad even shaved my hair to make it look like we were two boys. And they would get these two kids that look just like us, right? We would cross the border, they would have a ritual. Next thing you know, the kids are no longer alive, they're unalived. And they take all their organs out, stuff them with drugs, put them in the car to make it look like they're sleeping. And then we would cross the border walking, and my dad would cross in the car with those two kids who are unalived, stuffed with drugs, and they would cross the border. And then we would meet him on the other side, like at the McDonald's or whatever. And then we would drive to wherever he needed to go, and they do whatever they do. I don't know what they did with the bodies after that, but now that I think of it, now that I'm older, now that, it's something that haunts me because it's like the stuff that I've seen, the blood, and I'm like traumatized from it, but also I've been desensitized to it as well. Um, and that's why I always used to say, I'm like, I don't want to have kids. I don't want to have kids because I've seen what they do to kids. And I was like always scared, is this going to happen to me or my brother next? Like, but it wasn't just me and him. There was other children that were the children of the people involved that were also there. And I always wondered too, because nothing physically ever happened to us like bad, but my grandmother would always tell us it's because we are ancestors and the spirits that we call upon to take care of you guys. And when you get older, you're not going to age. You're going to always be healthy. Like all these things that she would always tell us. And I don't know. It was just things that my mind could not comprehend at the time. And even now, I still don't understand why these things happen. I feel like people have a choice, but they were money driven. My dad was money driven, and he had this authority and power because of his position at his work. And he got away with a lot of stuff, but eventually he got caught and he ended up going to prison for it. Um, but and there was a time that he did try to have me, my dad tried to have me killed when I was 19 years old because he thought that I testified against him when I was 9 years old. And he tried to have me murdered, but he's
Yeah.
no longer with us. He passed away a couple of years ago. But yeah, so those were kind of like the things that we were exposed to. And so when I started trying to explain to my dad that I'm starting to see and hear things, and to me, the things that would specifically like stand out to me the most were the dreams or the visions that I would have, because when I would have these visions or these dreams, they would actually happen. And this continued as I grew up, right, as an adult. But that specific, my very first one was where I told my dad that I saw us having a car accident, and I asked him to pull over. And so when he pulled over, the accident actually happened. Um, so then he kind of started to freak out a little bit, and he started to believe me a little bit. But my grandmother always told me that I was special because of the abilities that I had. I just never knew what to do with them. Um, so yeah, I was with my dad from age 5 to 9. And in those 4 years, like I said, when I was 6, I was sexually assaulted by an African American kid. And then throughout that time span, my dad's drinking only got worse after his mom passed away. He ended up going to bury her. He was gone for a month to her country for whatever rituals they do when people pass. And he left us with his girlfriend at the time, the white lady. And that lady abused me so much. Like, I remember, like, that's something that I will never forget. Like, my brother and I, we joke about it now because it's kind of funny, but it's really not. There was a specific day where she had me eat hot sauce and dish soap as punishment. And like, she was chugging the hot sauce bottle and the dish soap, like, squeezing it in there. And I remember that night when I fell asleep, I was vomiting and vomiting and vomiting and vomiting. And the next day she was so mad at me because I threw up all over her blanket. So she proceeded to smack me. She kept smacking me over and over and over again until she's like, I'm gonna keep hitting you until you stop falling. You're being dramatic. I'm like 7, 8 years old, and this is a grown lady, big lady, and she's hitting me over and over again. So that's the physical abuse where it began. It began with her. And then I remember when my dad came back, she told my dad that I was being very defiant, that I misbehaved, that I did not listen. And so my dad was still very like upset that his mom passed away. So I feel that he took out his anger on me because he didn't want to hear her say that I was misbehaving. So he grabbed the belt. And that's the first time my dad started to hit us, me. He started whipping me with the belt. And the last time he hit me, he ended up hitting me with the metal, which hit me in my face. And that's when he stopped. And then he was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hit you in the face." And he started like rubbing on my face, and he started singing this song to me that I hate it because every time Hispanics, when like a little kid gets hurt, they sing that little song, the Sana Sana Colita de Rana song. He sang that song to me, and I remember I was in his arms and I was crying, and I told him, I was like, I wasn't misbehaving. She made me eat hot sauce. She made me eat soap. Like, that's why I threw up on her blanket, and I didn't mean to. I was sick. So then my dad was like, she did what? So then he went over there and then he beat up on her. And I remember he went to jail that same night. And once he got out of jail, my dad's drinking only got worse. And at this point, he's already practicing, being a Muslim. And um, this is where he started to do stuff to me. He started playing this game with me like I was his girlfriend and or his wife, and he would make me like serve him, or like he started teaching us at a very young age how to cook and clean. And he was like, I have to prepare you and teach you how to become a wife. I'm only 8 years old at the time, and that's where it started. I was 8 years old. And so before I knew it, my dad was, doing stuff to me. He was grooming me. So at first, what he did to me, I didn't know it was wrong because he made it feel like I was enjoying it. Like he would touch me in places like tickle me and then do it in a way where it was non-heart hurtful, right? And we were playing a game. I thought we were playing. That's what my dad was teaching us. But then eventually it started to do stuff that I was not comfortable with, which was like oral sex. And then it led to um, penetration. And at that point, I was just like, I don't want to play this game anymore. But my father would always threaten me. He had a gun, so he would put the gun to my head, especially when he wanted me to perform oral on him. And he would tell me that if I didn't do it, he was going to shoot me in the head. And the only reason why I would continue was because my brother was in the same room, and he said that my brother would wake up and find me dead, and I was going to traumatize my brother. So he would manipulate me, right? And I hated it. I hated doing that. And I hated the way it made me feel. I hated the feelings that I felt when he would threaten me because I wasn't allowed to express fear. My dad taught us at a very young age to not be afraid. He used to make my brother and I fight out of pleasure. And we would go at it for hours. And he said the first person that would lose would get their, he would beat us up. So we would go at it for hours. And sometimes when my brother would just take it, he would just be like, you know what, I'm tired. Just I'll take the beating this time. And my brother really took a lot of care. He tried to protect me as much as he could. But my brother never knew about what my dad was doing. My brother never knew about the sexual abuse. But at that point, my dad was already physically abusing us. He would drink and he would start hitting us like, and it wasn't just like a belt. It wasn't just like a belt or a smack. My dad would beat us like, up to the day that the last time that he hit us, um, that was the first time I encountered my first demon. Um, the last time that he hit us, I remember we were both hiding underneath the table, the kitchen table, and he was kicking, he was punching, and we were just both two little kids just hiding in the corner, like at the very corner behind like the kitchen table. And that's when I remember I saw a demon that looked like the one from Insidious, that little demon from Insidious. And it was it was communicating with me telepathically, and it was pretty much telling me that if I wanted all of this to stop, that I had to walk across the highway because we live right in front of a highway, like a main freeway. And I was like, what? Like, I don't understand. Like, why are you telling me to like walk across the highway? I could get hit by a car or something, you know? But at the time, it almost felt like I wanted to because I wanted the abuse to stop, the physical abuse, the sexual abuse. And I just remember like wanting to do it, but I didn't do it. And I remember that day that we got hit in the nighttime, my brother and I were grounded. So we were in our room and we're both just sitting with our backs against the wall. Whew, I'm sorry, I don't want to cry. And we held each other's hands. And he told me that he was always gonna protect me, and that he was never gonna let anything bad happen to me because that day he got the beating the worst, and I told him I'm so sorry that you had to get hit like that. And he held my head and he's like, I'm always gonna take care of you. You're my sister. And it was like we made a pact, to always look out for each other. And I'm sorry, it's just my brother and I have gone through so much. And I feel like sometimes my brother hasn't really addressed those issues like I have. Um, so because of that beating, the school noticed and we were taken away because the clothes that we were wearing could no longer cover the bruises. My brother had bruises on his ear, on his neck, on his back, and I did too, but his were a lot worse. I remember that day after school, he didn't pick me up, so I walked to his school, and I remember I saw a bunch of cops there, and they told me to walk to the nurse's office, and I was like, "Am I in trouble?" And I saw an officer come grab me, and he was like, "Your brother's in here." He's like, "Don't worry, everything's okay. You guys are safe now." And they drove us to Polinsky, And that's where they removed us from my dad. And I remember being at Polinsky, it was not a great place either. Like immediately when we get there, they separated us. They had me strip all my clothes down, like be completely naked, and they started taking pictures of my body. And they didn't even explain to me anything. They were just like, all right, I need you to take your clothes off. And they just started taking pictures of me like I was some piece of evidence. And then they put me in a girl cottage and they put my brother in a different cottage. And we were there for, I don't even remember how long we were there. It felt like eternity. And while we were there, that's when I learned that my mom was alive. And they were like, your mom is alive. Do you want to meet her? She's going to start visiting you guys here. And I was like, okay, sure, I guess. And a part of me was excited, but a part of me was kind of like, not really like, I was angry because where were you at my life? Like every time my dad would abuse me, every time like anything would happen, I remember I would go to the bathroom and I would cry and I would ask God, where's my mom? And I would have dreams that I would fly away and I would go find her. And so when I found out that she was alive and she was going to start visiting us, it was a confusing feeling because I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if we were going to bond or not. And so she starts visiting us in there, but even the visits were weird because she was only excited to see my brother and she was not really excited to see me. And so I felt neglected. I felt neglected from the minute she went back into our lives. And then my dad still had visits with us too, because at this point, they still didn't know that he sexually assaulted me. They just knew about the physical abuse. And not only that, too, but my dad was sleeping with our lawyer and his lawyer. So he was also paying them off. And so he was hiding a lot of evidence and whatnot. So when we leave Polinsky, my aunt, my mom's sister, she's the one that took us out and she fostered us for a few months. And when we were with her, I remember feeling happy. I remember feeling joy. I remember feeling like a kid. Like I felt safe when I was with my aunt. But then eventually my brother was like, they gave us the opportunity to reunify with my mom, and they're like, you guys should go with your mom. You guys belong with your mom. And I was like, I feel happy here with my aunt. Like, I don't know that lady. Like, and so my brother was like, I want to go live with my mom. And I didn't want to be without my brother. So I went with him. And honestly, I think that that was like one of the worst things that could have happened because things got a lot worse there with her too. Um, I was almost 10 years old when I moved in with my mom. I had my 10th birthday there with her. And she, from the beginning, it just felt like she didn't like me. Like I was just a bother to her. Like, I don't know if it was because we had communication issues because she didn't speak English and I didn't speak Spanish. So it was a lot of misunderstanding there. But she just never seemed to want me there or have me around. And she already had two other kids. She had my little brother and my little sister. And she just seemed excited about my brother. She didn't really seem excited about me. So I always felt out of place. I always felt not wanted. And what I did is that I attached myself again to my grandparents because now that my mom's in the picture, I'm able to visit my grandparents again and I'm able to see my aunt still. And I remember my 10th birthday, my mom, that was the first time she hit me because I told her, she said I was giving her an attitude, and I was like, I'm not giving you an attitude. I just feel like you don't love me. And so she slaps me across my face and she told me, you're not going to tell me how I feel about you. And I remember in that moment, that's when I felt and I knew I could never trust her. And I built this wall around myself, my heart, and everything because I could not believe that the woman that I cried for every single day had put hands on me and she was supposed to protect me. So my 10th birthday was like she had ruined it because she didn't hear me out and she hit me. So while I'm there living with her, um, she's living with the guy she had gotten pregnant by when I was 5 years old. She was still with him, and he didn't want us there. He made it, especially me, he made it very known that he didn't want us there. He would do little drawings on his notebook with the sword going down my head or him stabbing me. And I would tell my mom, like, he's doing some weird stuff. I don't feel comfortable that he's doing these things. And she's like, oh, you need to try harder. He's providing for us. That's the father of your siblings. And on top of that, he was very overprotective of his daughter. So like I would always like be the person to separate her and my other brother because they would fight. And so she would go crying to her dad, and her dad would be like, "Oh, you're trying to abuse my daughter. You just don't like her." And I was like, "No, like he would always favor her, and then also like abused my little brother like pretty badly, and my mom would never do anything about it." Um, So while I'm there living with my mom, I had to deal with her boyfriend and my two siblings that I'm trying to get to know and whatever. We're in therapy. And eventually they ended up sending us to do a physical, right? While we're living with my mom. And that's when they found out that I was sexually assaulted through the physical. I remember they shut down the clinic and everything, and they ended up taking me to the hospital. And that's when all the painful procedures started, all the tests and stuff. And I remember trying to hold my mom's hand because of these procedures. They don't put you to sleep, they don't even sedate you. They have to do everything the way they have to do it. And my mom turns and walks away and leaves me there alone. And I had to learn at a very young age that I had nobody, you know? So I went through those painful procedures and testing so that they can you know, use that evidence against my father. And they started sending me to therapy for that, and they diagnosed me with a bunch of stuff. And I thought, okay, now that I'm in therapy, now that everybody knows the truth, my life will change. Now she'll understand. Now she'll have empathy for me. But it didn't. My mom started saying the most horrible things to me because, like I told you, they would allow us to still visit my dad before they put him in jail. And I was groomed. So I had to learn that what my dad did was abuse, that I wasn't his girlfriend, that it was not something good, that it was bad, that all the stuff that he did was bad. So my mom would always say stuff like, no, you loved what your dad did to you because you would tell him you loved him when you would visit him, and you would give him a hug and you would accept his gifts. And I'm like, I didn't know what he did to me was wrong. Like he taught me that this was normal. He said that where we're from, or in the name of Allah, this was what was supposed to happen. I thought it was okay. Now I know it's not, but I did not like it. You don't know. It would break my heart when she would say stuff like that because in the inside, she doesn't know how I felt. You know, nobody knows how you feel when you go through some kind of abuse. And when somebody tries to speak on your feelings, especially your own mother, that just broke me, you know? So while I'm dealing with therapy and, you know, they put my dad in jail, they're preparing us to testify against him. And that's when they had already started an investigation about all the other stuff he was doing. Um, they were trying to have my brother and I testify, but my mom was afraid that if we did that, they would kill us, you know, because my dad was involved with a lot of bad people. So CPS eventually was like, we have more jurisdiction over the kids than their mom does, and we're going to say that they're not going to testify. These kids have been through enough. So they put my dad in jail. And so now I'm living with my mom. And very early on, my mom, like I said, she was very physically abusive towards me, very verbally abusive towards me. She would get beat by her boyfriend. Her boyfriend was very abusive when he would drink. And then out of anger, she would take it out on me. Or if her boyfriend was beating up my brother, she would beat me up because I didn't do enough to stop them. He's a grown man. I'm a little girl. I don't have the strength to stop them. I screamed for you to come help because they were fighting. You know, I just remember that fight that they had. Her boyfriend was choking my brother, and I was screaming at my mom to come help. And she gets mad at me like it's my fault that that was happening. Like, dude, why are you with this guy? You know, she put him in jail, but then she'll bail him out. Like, this is what I'm learning. This is a behavior she's teaching me, that it's okay to accept a man who hits you as long as he provides for you. Because my father did the same thing too. He beat on women, but he had slept with multiple women, and they would accept him because he would pay them. So this is what I was like, you know, subjected to. This is what I learned. This is a behavior that I thought was okay. And so I'm dealing with that. And eventually, like, I'm attached to my brother. So my brother starts hanging out with the wrong crowd. And so now I'm hanging out with my brother. And so my mom's boyfriend starts to become scared of the people we are associated with. And then my mom, instead of telling my brother to stop, she kicks me out of the house. I'm 12 years old and she kicks me out of the house because she said, I'm not going to have gangsters living in my house. I'm like, I'm not a gangster. I just hang out with them because I feel safe with them. They make me feel safe because of your boyfriend. He's always hitting you and he's always threatening to do stuff to us. Like, I feel safer with him than with you. And she's like, okay, we'll get out of my house. So she kicks me out and I'm, hanging out at the park. I'm already at this point drinking, smoking weed, hanging out with the wrong crowd. And eventually in these moments, there's a fight that happens where I get jumped. And I was given the opportunity to defend myself and to unalive the people that were hurting me. But, even then I knew that I wasn't a bad person and that I never want to hurt somebody physically because I have a heart and I have empathy for people. And I know that these people probably didn't want to hurt me either. It's just part of what they do for their lifestyle, right? So I let them jump me. And then that night after that happened, I go to a friend's house where his mom helps me get cleaned up. And then I get introduced to this person who is 30 years old, and he tells me that he has something to take the pain go away that's stronger than marijuana. Because at the time, I was just smoking marijuana and drinking alcohol. And so I was like, okay. And I was like, at this point, I was like, what else do I have to lose? I have nowhere to go. My mom kicked me out. Like, these people seem to care about me because they want to help me take my pain away. This is what my 12-year-old mind was thinking. So this man introduces me to meth. And once I didn't know until later on that this guy was a drug lord and he had a meth lab. And so once I was, under the influence of meth, I was not allowed to leave his compound and he trafficked me. So I'm 12 years old, being trafficked and given meth over and over again. And at this point, I was taking the meth because it numbed me from feeling anything emotionally, mentally, and physically because of all the trafficking that was happening. And it was like, I guess this is my life now. I thought that was just going to be it for me. And eventually I was able to escape. And I remember when I escaped, I collapsed in the middle of the street and my friends found me because I don't know how long I was in there. All I know is that there was missing signs. My mom had posted missing signs. And so when I was at the hospital, the cops were like, you can't say your daughter is missing if you kicked her out. You can't say she's a runaway if you kicked her out. Like bad things can happen to children, right? So while I'm at the hospital, my mom's telling the officers to take me to juvie because I'm a bad kid. And they're like, okay, we'll take her to juvie, but you have to pay for it. And she's like, I don't have that kind of money. And he's like, okay, well, that sounds like you need to be a mom and take care of your child. So that summer, I ended up staying with my grandparents and I begged them. I was like, please, can I stay with you guys? I don't want to live with my mom. Like it's horrible there. I don't like it there. And so they were allowing me to come spend more time with them, while I wasn't in school or whatever. But while that was happening, that's when I started being my uncle, my mom's younger brother. That's when he started to sexually molest me. And I'm not gonna like go into detail, but my uncle, my mom's younger brother, he molested me and abused me, sexually assaulted me from the age of 12 to 14. And so now I'm dealing with that on top of what I'm already dealing with my dad. Like I'm trying to heal from what my dad did to me, from what happened to me when I was 6 years old, but now it's happening with this guy that he's my uncle. We're almost the same age, but I felt a lot of shame. I was afraid to tell anyone. I felt like it was my fault just for existing, for being a female. And my mom would always tell me things like, don't dress like that because you're provoking people. If anything happens, it's going to be your fault. So I would always wear like clothes like that covered my whole body up, which I was already kind of used to because my dad used to make me wear the hijab and everything. So I thought, okay, if I dress myself down, nothing will happen to me. But that was not true because my uncle started to do stuff to me. And so then now I'm dealing with my mom, her abuse, her domestic violence. Now I'm dealing with her brother who's sexually abusing me. And now her older sister comes from Mexico with her son, who's also almost my age, and he also starts to molest me. But he didn't like penetrate me until I was 15 years old. At the age of 15, I remember running away from home because my mom's beatings were getting worse. And I remember going to stay with one of my uncles, and he was trying to adopt me. He was like, I'm gonna try to adopt you, like you'll do better here. But my mom was like, no, I'm never gonna give her up for adoption. She's my daughter, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, but you don't even love her, you don't even take care of her, like just let me adopt her. So I was staying with my uncle, and my uncle was a DJ. My brother, my younger uncle, the one that was abusing me, and my older brother, they all went to go help him, right? There was a specific night where they came back very late. And while I was staying with my uncle, I used to sleep in the living room because he only had a one bedroom. And that specific night, my cousin, that's when he took his from touching me to actually sexually assaulting me in like the worst way possible. Um, and this is how I knew that I was built differently because I could have hated him. I could have like done the worst to him, but instead, what happened was when he sexually assaulted me, so he penetrated me from the back. And it was the most painful thing that I have ever experienced at 15. And I remember I was screaming and I was crying, and he was covering my mouth so I wouldn't wake my brother up, who was also sleeping in the same, room. And I was asking him to stop. And then eventually he stopped and he goes outside and he's sitting at the stairs and he's crying. And I remember that when I approached him, I heard him praying. He was praying to the Virgin Mary because that's who he believes in. And that's where I realized that I was different because when I heard him praying, I heard a voice tell me that I had to forgive him and I had to show him empathy. And that was the hardest thing to do because he had just hurt me. So I sat next to him and I hugged him and I told him, you know what, it's okay. It's fine. I forgive you. Just don't let it happen again. After that, I couldn't come back to my uncle's house because I felt so ashamed and I felt so dirty. And I was afraid it was going to happen again. So I didn't come back to my uncle's house. And my uncle was like, why didn't you come home? Where were you? And I couldn't tell him. So I let him believe what he wanted. And it changed the dynamic of our relationship because my uncle believed what my mom said, that I was a bad kid and that I ran away from home a lot. But he didn't know that it was because of what my cousin did. So that changed my relationship with my uncle a lot. And my uncle was a very special person in my life because he was like a father to me. He helped raise me along with my grandfather, and I looked up to him a lot. But I feel that after that incident, that he was disappointed in me, but I had to let him be disappointed in me because I was too scared to tell him the truth. So I'm 15 years old and I have to go back with my mom. But then my mom started doing this thing where she starts locking me out of the house. And I get hungry, I'm cold, like I need shelter. So one weekend I stay with one of my friends and her mom was like, we need to talk to your mom. This is not okay. She can't keep locking you out of the house. So she's like, on Monday, we're going to go to your house and we're going to talk to your mom. If not, we're going to have to call the police. So we go to my mom's apartment and everything is gone. The furniture, everything's gone. And I'm like, what? Where did she go? So I tried calling the landline because back in the day you have landlines, and she disconnected the number. And the fortunate thing is that it was able to give me the new number. So I called the new number and my brother answers. And I was like, where are you guys at? Like, what happened? Like, it was just 2 days. Where did you guys go? And he was like, I'm sorry, I can't talk to you. I can't tell you where we live either. Like, I'm not allowed to talk to you right now. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, what did I do? Like, what am I supposed to do? And then he hung up. So I'm 15 years old, undocumented, because at this point I still don't have I'm still undocumented. I was born in Mexico. I'm undocumented. I'm homeless. I have nothing. I have no one. And I'm in a city that I really don't know. So I started sleeping at the parks. I started sleeping at school playgrounds. I would sometimes go to my friend's house to shower, to eat. And eventually, the guy that was my boyfriend at the time started sneaking me into his grandma's house, and I ended up getting pregnant. So I was 15 and pregnant. I had my first daughter at 16. And so his grandma eventually let me stay there because I was already pregnant. And she's like, yeah, we need to help you. This is not okay. Like, you need to get your papers because you can get deported at any time. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. Like, I don't even know Mexico like that. I considered myself American because English is my first language. Like it was just everything was just surprising to me. Like, but eventually, like when I found out I was pregnant with my daughter at 15, I stopped drinking and smoking weed, and I stopped smoking meth because I knew I was going to become a mom and I wanted my baby to be healthy. And so a part of me was scared, but I was also excited because I felt like I had something of my own that I was able to love, um, like on purpose, like, not like I have to love my mom or my brother. It was like my own child. So in that point, I felt like she kind of saved me from a lot of things because it gave me a lot of hope. So then I have my daughter. I'm with her dad for a few years, but he's also like he's he's a documented gang member. So eventually I had to leave him because there was an incident which I spoke about where I had a dream that something was going to happen to him, and I asked him not to go to school. And I remember he left anyways, and I went back to sleep, and I heard a voice telling me, wake up, it's happening." And when I wake up, we ended up going to the school where he was at. And long story short, him and his uncle got stabbed. And yeah, him and his uncle got stabbed. It was gang related. And a week later, his cousin gets stabbed. A week later, I get jumped with my daughter in a stroller. And I was like, this is getting too dangerous. I can't be with this. I can't be with this person. It's dangerous for me and my children. And then he kept going in and out of jail. And eventually, when I found out I was pregnant with my twins and I found out I was having boys, I was like, I have to have a better life for my children. So he ended up going to jail. Um, Again, gang related stuff. And I took advantage of that to leave. And I remember I called my mom and I asked her to help me. I was like, I don't have anywhere to stay. I want stability. I want to go back to school. Like, she was like, "Oh, well, you can't stay with me because my man is not gonna be happy about that." Like, she was always very like, her man comes before her children, or at least me. And so she's like, "I can help give you a ride to a shelter." So she picks me and my daughter up and she drops me off at a shelter in a city that I don't know and gives me $20. And so I'm at this shelter for a couple weeks. And then I remember I ended up meeting my ex-mother-in-law, bless her soul. Her name is Noemi. We started talking and she was like, you're about to be a mom of three kids. You can't stay at that shelter. It's dangerous." Because she would give me rides back and she's like, "There's like a bunch of drug addicts here. You can't have a baby here. You can't have your 2-year-old daughter here." So she's like, "Why don't you come stay with me and my family? We can help take care of you." I was like, "I don't know how I feel about that." And she's like, she started inviting me over to her house like every often so I could start getting comfortable with it. And so she had a son. So pretty much I was like in an arranged relationship with her son, and my children had a roof over their head. And I accepted the offer because I wanted my kids to have stability, right? He was older than me. I was 17. He was like 21, 22. And I was like, if this is what it's going to take to make sure my kids are okay, then I'm going to do it. So I was with her son and I moved. I would say I was with her because she's the one that helped take care of me. I moved in with him. The same day that I went to go spend the night with him is the same day that I went into labor with my twins. And so I stayed with them for a few years. And when I was there with them, I felt safe. I felt I felt very loved by her. But there was some moments that had me question a lot of who I was and who I believed in spiritually, because again, I started to have my visions and my dreams. I did not know she had cancer. I remember there was one day that I told her, "I had a dream that you went to the doctor on a Tuesday at 2 p.m. and this is what the doctor looked like. He looks like Mr. Miyagi from Karate Kid." And then she looked at me. oh, and then I told her, and I was like, they told you in the dream that you had cancer. And so she looks at me and she told me that I was a witch. And I was like, why? She's like, because that day at that time, I went to go see my doctor and he told me that my cancer came back. And I was like, wait, you have cancer? And she was like, well, I was in remission, but it came back and it's starting to spread. And so I remember I broke down crying because I was like, did I manifest this? Is this my fault? Should I have said something sooner? And she's like, it's okay. And then she's like, let me prepare myself to tell my family. So she told her family she had cancer, and I was one of her caregivers. I was there through her chemos, and eventually she ended up passing away because her cancer did spread and it went to her heart, and she couldn't breathe anymore. But I was with her for about 5 years, and in those 5 years that I was living with him, there was a lot of paranormal stuff that would happen there. I remember being woken up because a voice told me to get up and take my kids out of the room. And I was like, what? Why? And the voice was like, get up, get your kids out. There's something bad, something dark, something evil in this room. And I remember waking up the guy that I was with. I was like, hey, something's telling me to get the kids out. So he helped me get the twins and my daughter out. And so we're sitting in the living room and he's like, what's going on? And I was like, I don't know. Something woke me up and told me that there was something in the room. So then we look at the door because we're facing the door now and we see these two little gnome looking like, in Spanish they're called duendes, and with red eyes. And we saw them like pick their head through the side of the door, and he got so scared and he started screaming for his mom. His mom runs down the hall and she's like, what's happening, what's happening? And she said that when she passed the door she felt, and she felt a presence, and that she looked and she saw something from the corner of her eye. So I was like, I'm not sleeping, and I'm getting chills just remembering. She's like, nobody goes in that room until we have a pastor come bless it or whatever. So she had somebody come, and the pastor was like, there's something dark in this room. There's something evil. Like, you guys need to do some kind of ritual to sway off all the bad spirits. She's Native American, so they have their own rituals. And so they're burning sage or whatever, and they're going around with their thing, blessing every room. And then they come to me and they're like, there's something attached to you and something's following you around. And I was like, what? Like, I didn't summon anything. Like, I don't believe in that stuff. And the pastor was like, there's something attached to you and it's attracting all this dark energy. And I was like, well, and that's when I told my mother-in-law, I was like, when I was little, these are the things that my dad would do. And she's like, well, you need to ask Jesus to take that stuff away from you. And I was like, well, I don't know how. So at that time, I remember that I did start going to this church. It's called the Church of God, World's Mission Society Church of God. And I remember being really invested in going there. They had service Sundays and Tuesdays, and it was Korean. I remember their prayers were in Korean, and they believed that the second coming of Christ already happened, and that his name was Ansanhon. That's what they taught us. And so they had this thing where they believe in God the Mother. And so I was like hungry for the word. I was desperate to find salvation. I was desperate to get rid of all this dark stuff that was happening to me. So I believed anything that would make me like feel like something was out there. And so what made me even more attracted to this church was they believe in God the Mother, right? I didn't know what she looked like. I did not know what she looked like, but I remember this one time I had a dream about her, and I went to the deaconess and I said, hey, I think I know who God the Mother is. I had a dream about her. And she's like, really? What does she look like? So I described to her what she was wearing and the colors. It was like pink and purple and how she had her hair. And she's like, come here, I want to show you something. And she was like, is that who you dreamed about? I was like, yeah, yeah, that's the lady. And a lot of people came around. They're like, oh my God, no way. Like, a lot of us pray to dream about her. And some of us go on missions just to go out there and meet her in person. How did you do it? I was like, I really didn't do it. It just she came to me in a dream. I don't know. It was weird. And so they were trying to like hype me up to go to where she was at. And so I would always ask questions like, do you guys really believe that's the second Jesus? Like, where's the proof? Show me in the Bible where it says, yeah.
Who is this God the Mother, and where would they go to meet her?
I believe it's in Korea. Like I
Mm.
said, they believe that the second coming of Christ already happened and that his name was Ansanhon and that it's in the Bible. And I was like, okay, well, show me in the Bible where it says that. And every time I would ask that, they're like, just wait, it's not part of the Bible study yet. So I was like, it wasn't that I was defiant or stubborn. It was just more that I have questions. Like, if you want me to believe in something, then you need to be able to answer me. So I was there like faithfully going all the time, going to the Bible studies. I love Bible studies. I love learning about the Bible, right? But everybody interprets the Bible differently, right? So then 2012 happens, and they believe in fasting. They do feast of the tabernacles, feast of this, feast of that. So they do a lot of stuff. And so I remember 2012 comes around, and that's when a tragedy in my family happens. And I talked about this on another podcast about my uncle's suicide. My uncle, the one that I was living with when I was 15. Apparently, it was a murder suicide where he committed suicide after killing his two children. And so when this happens, I remember seeking refuge in the church, and they pretty much told me that my uncle went to hell because of what he did, that he will never be forgiven. And I was like, yeah, but I don't think he committed suicide. I think there's more to the story. Like, let's not jump to conclusions. And I was there crying. It was the day that it was his wake. I left. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I remember I went to the church. I said, if anybody can help me, it's going to be God. So I went. My heart told me to go to the church. And at the church, they're like, no, he went to hell. What he did. Da, da, da. After that, I was like, forget this. I was so angry. 2012, I was so angry and I hated God. I said, how could you let this happen? How can you let this happen? How could you have let innocent children die? If this is true, like what happened? Why would my uncle have done that? Like it created like distance between our family members and the wife he was or the woman he was married to. And there was just a lot of questions. And I remember I would say, I hate you, God, I hate you. Like I'm already like hating God because of everything that happened to me. And now this made matters worse. And I said, you know what? I'm never coming to church again. I'm like, I don't believe this stuff is true. They're just messing with my mind because they can't even prove to me where in the Bible it says this person exists. And so I said, I'm not coming to church anymore. It was July 4th was the last day. July 4th, 2012 was the last day I went to church. And I said, I'm mad, God. Don't speak to me ever again. And I went on a dark path. Starting 2012, that's when my alcohol started to happen again, my alcohol addiction. I started, experimenting with cocaine. I started smoking meth again. And the relationship that I was in with that guy, that arranged relationship, I was like, I don't want to be with you. I never like cared about you. I never loved you. It was just because of your mom wanting to keep me safe. But it was, I care about you, but I don't want to be with you. So I left him and I made a bold decision to get with my best friend. I said, I'm going to get with my best friend. People do weird, dumb stuff when they're grieving. So I ended up getting with my best friend, which was the worst idea ever because there was a lot of red flags there, but I didn't care. I just wanted to feel something other than the pain that I was going through when my uncle died. And when I got with him, I started experimenting more with cocaine. So fast forward from 2012 to 2017, um, I'm already like, I thought I was a functional drug addict though, because I could drink, I could do whatever, and I was still able to pay my bills. I was still able to take my kids to school. Like everything, I thought it was normal.
Hey, do you love what you're seeing in this ministry? And do you feel like you want to partner with us in taking the truth, which is Jesus, further into all the nations and exposing the lies of the enemy? If you said yes, then head over to dub.sh/giving, GIVING. Thanks so much in advance, and let's get back to the episode.
But then in 2017, I started having a lot of pain on my side, and they ended up telling me that I had stage 3 liver disease. They're like, if you don't stop drinking, you're gonna have to we're gonna have to put you on the organ transplant list, which you're not gonna qualify for because you're an alcoholic. So I was like, and then I had gained a lot of weight from drinking. I was almost 300 pounds. And I was like, well, I tried everything to lose weight and it's not working because I had this type of resistant diabetes to the insulin where my sugar was always dropping. So I had to always eat something, which made me gain weight. So they're like, okay, we're going to do a surgery on you to help you lose weight. So I ended up getting my first gastric sleeve weight loss surgery in 2017. But before I had that surgery, I remember they told me 2 weeks before that they were like, no drinking, no smoking, no drugs. I lied to them. On my birthday, I ended up overdosing on cocaine, and that was the first time I experienced my first death. Um, I remember the guy that I had already left. He told me he was like, he's the one that picked us up from the bar and took me home. He was like, my mom would be so disappointed in you because that same year, 2017, that's the same year my grandma died. That's the same year his mom died. So I lost two people at once, both cancer. And I was like dealing with it with drinking and with doing drugs. So I was like, I don't care what your mom would have wanted. I just want to take this pain away. I was so like lost, you know? So I remember I went into my room and I did a big old line of cocaine. I went outside and I remember I was walking and my chest started to hurt. And I ended up collapsing. The guy that followed me, one of my friends, he said I fell into a bush, which I do remember that. But I remember feeling a lot of pain in my chest. And as I was dying, I could see myself floating away. Like everything stopped and stood still. And it was like an out of body experience that I was having. Like I could see myself, but I couldn't feel anything. But at the same time, there was so many things happening because I was like experiencing like my life replayed in my head, but it was like a movie in front of me. But all the bad things where God's telling me, you have to repent for all these things if you want to get into heaven with me. And I was like, I don't even remember that, but wow, okay. Like God gave me an opportunity to repent and see everything that I was happening, everything that I had gone through, what I'd done wrong, and ask for forgiveness. God gave me the opportunity before I went to heaven, right? But then again, at the same time, I'm seeing them do CPR on me and my friends over there freaking out. And I'm like, am I dying? Is this it for me? And I remember feeling God's presence there, but it wasn't here. Like it was not here. He was far away. And I was like, well, where are you? Like, I have so many. I was like, all right, let's do this. I have so many questions for you. Like, how could you let this happen? But God was like, almost like it was like, not that I wasn't deserving of Him being next to me, but it was like it wasn't my time. So it was like, this isn't not your time. Like, get your stuff together. You have a job to do for me. So I remember waking up, I was like stuck to a bunch of things. And I remember thinking, okay, it hurt. It hurt to die because my chest, when I collapsed, it hurt. So I was like, I'm not going to do that again. That's when I stopped doing cocaine. But I did continue to still drink. And I had decided at that time that I needed to leave that relationship I was in with my best friend, who was also my husband at the time. And I knew that in 2018, I was like, I wanted to change my life around, but I just didn't know how. But then one thing, I'm telling you, like one thing after another always happens. In 2018, I had already left my first husband, but CPS got involved in my kid's life because while my daughter was visiting my ex-husband, she had mentioned that she saw substances in his house, like, because she was learning about drugs. So the CPS told me that if I didn't get a restraining order against him, that they were going to take my kids away. I'm a first-time single mom working a full-time job. I was like, I'll ask for some time off and then I'll go whenever I could get the time off. And they're like, no, you need to go right now. So by the time I got to the courthouse, they don't deal with the restraining orders at that time. They're like, you need to be here first thing in the morning. So I let CPS know. I was like, well, I couldn't get the restraining order because I went very late. And they're like, okay, well, you failed to protect your children. So they took my kids away. And that triggered me so bad, losing my children because I didn't know anything else but to be a mom. And I felt like I failed because I didn't want my kids to ever go through what I did, be part of the system. But eventually that happened. So when they took my kids away, I started using again, and I started using heavily. The guy that I was involved with, he introduced me to the needle, so I became an IV user. So I was shooting up meth now. So it was not just smoking or snorting. Now I'm shooting it up. That was something that I never thought in my life I would do because it's something you see in movies. I never thought I would do that. And, I was stuck. I was stuck for a few months, almost a year, just shooting up, shooting up, shooting up. And when I did that, I remember that it removed another veil because I was able to see stuff. Like the first time that I shot up, I remember like this veil lifted, and then there's this demon sitting next to me, and I was like, "Who are you, and why are you here?" And the demon's like, "I'm about to show you things for what they really are. Now you could see." And I was like, "Well, what are you talking about?" So that's where my psychosis started, and this demon was always like following me around, talking about, "You see this person? This is what this person is doing with his life. He's not a good person. This is a good like he would follow me around and like pretty much like describe everything that was going around me in my life. Like he was that voice in my head that would tell me who to trust and who not to trust. But most of the time he wasn't wrong, you know. So I would always question like, was that really a demon or what was that, you know? Um, and I remember that that demon tried to warn me a couple times when I was gonna shoot myself up with drugs, not to do it because there was something wrong with it, with the needle. And I was like, I was too high to even like pay attention anymore. And I remember one of the times, well, two of the times that I gave myself a shot, there was heroin and fentanyl in it. And that's something that I didn't want to do by choice. But the guy that I was with was trying to kill me. That's where it started. He wanted to, for whatever reason, like he was on drugs too. So he started trying to, he also opened me up to a lot of things in my life. Like I said, there goes the spirit of lust when I was using that drug. We experimented a lot with uh, sleeping with other people, men, women, transgenders, multiple people. Like we had orgies at our apartment. A lot of weird stuff. Like I saw a lot of weird stuff happening. And when I started to realize that this was something that I did not want to do, when he started to give me the heroin, I was like, I don't like this. I wanted to get high off meth. I don't like how heroin feels. Um, and I remember at some point I started to isolate myself from my family. I used to go over to my mom's house every weekend with my kids, but when they took my kids away, I stopped talking to her. I stopped talking to my brother. I remember my older brother used to come to my apartment and knock on my door, and I used to hide in the closet because I didn't want him to see me in that state. I was too embarrassed. I was too ashamed, but deep down inside, I wanted help. I just didn't know how to ask for it. So I remember 6, 7 months in, I remember sending my sister a message. It was on her birthday because I wanted to go to her birthday party, but I knew when I looked myself in the mirror, I was like 98 pounds. I went from being almost 300 pounds to 98 pounds, and I was like, I can't go like this to my mom's house. People are gonna see me. They're gonna know what I'm doing. So I remember I didn't go, and my mom sends me a message, and she's like, "Is it true? Are you prostituting yourself? I'm hearing all these things." And I was like, in order to prostitute yourself, you have to get paid for what you're doing, like for those sexual acts. I'm not getting paid. This is something that I'm experimenting with that I'm enjoying. That's how I answered her. And so I'm like, just leave me alone. So another 2 months passed by. And at this point, I'm already feeling sick. I'm already like withdrawing really bad from the heroin and everything. And I was like, I need help. So I reached out to my friend, the one that was there when I died the first time. And I told him, I was like, I need help. I need to get into rehab. I really want to get my kids back. I don't want to be in this relationship anymore. I don't want to do any, I never wanted to do any of this, but it's the drugs and those demons that are telling me to do these things. I don't want this anymore. I'm like, help me, please. So he's like, all right, me and my mom will take you to Denny's and we'll talk to your family so they can help, get you into some kind of rehab. And so I remember we decided we were going to do that. And I remember I sent my sister a message and I was like, hey, if I get into rehab, will you come visit me? Because I'm scared. I don't want to do this alone. And my little sister, she's 5 years younger than me. She was like, yeah, we could do that. I'm happy that you're going to get the help that you need. Thank you for telling me the truth and trusting me. So I was like, okay, I'm going to talk to my mom now and with my older brother. Hopefully they're as supportive as you are. So then I go to the Denny's and I remember my friend and his mom, they're trying to, do an intervention, and instead my family was being very judgmental, and I felt like I couldn't trust them. I was like, they don't want to help me, they're not going to come see me, they just want to lock me up. So I was like, you know what, forget this, I should have never done this. I asked my friends to come pick me up. I go back to my apartment and I ended up getting high again. I hadn't slept already in 3 weeks in that time, so I remember I was like losing my mind, and I was like, God, like if this is a nightmare, I have to wake myself up. And in that moment, I was like, I am in a nightmare. So I remember grabbing a knife and I severed my arm. I said, if this is a nightmare, I'm going to wake up from this nightmare. If not, then I'm just going to die. So I committed suicide pretty much. And that's the second time I died. I cut my arm really bad, and I remember I was just bleeding, and I remember going to the hospital, and I remember flatlining, and I remember because my veins were so shot out, they could not run an IV on me, so they had to do it on my neck. And again, I remember dying, and I remember asking God for forgiveness because I was like, I know God's disappointed in me because of what I've been doing to my body, Even though I wasn't that very religious, I know that our body is a temple and it's a holy thing that we should be taking care of. And I had not been doing that with all the drug use. And so I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm just hurting, God. I'm hurting. I'm broken. Like, I need help. Like, I remember like God's presence, but he wasn't that close to me. He was far away. I felt like I was being judged. So they brought me back to life, but I was in the ICU. My blood became septic, and all the antibiotics they were giving me was not working. So they told me that I was very critical, that I might not make it. I remember my little brother he's in the military, and he was in Korea at the time, and I remember hearing his voice, and he was like, "Do I need to come back home and say goodbye to my sister?" And I remember feeling sad because I was like, I can't do this to my family. We already lost my uncle. He committed suicide, and I was like, I don't want them to think that I was actually trying to kill myself. I just wanted to wake up from this bad dream. So I remember telling my ex-husband and the guy I was with at the time, I was like, you guys need to take me out of this hospital. I'm gonna die here. I'm gonna die here and I'm not gonna make it. My kids are not gonna have a mom. Like I want to fight for my life, but I can't do it here. So they ended up like taking me from that hospital, like out of my will. Like I took everything off and they took me to another hospital. And in that hospital, that's where I got better. But even in that time, I remember being in a state of mind where I was being judged, like God was deciding whether or not to give me another chance because He had already given me another chance when He told me that you have a job. I have a job for you. Get sober. And I decided to not get sober and I messed up again, but God gave me a chance again. So I survived that and I decided I wanted to get clean. But the guy that I was with was not allowing that to happen. This guy started becoming very physically abusive. He started hitting me. Um, this was towards the end of 2018 and 2019. And so I was tired of it. I was tired of getting high. I told him I don't want to do this anymore. I remember I would hide in another room just to keep from him making me use or him beating on me. Like he, I have so many scars like on my head, on my body from all the beatings he would give me. And it was all because he would go into a psychotic state of mind from the drugs he was using. And I remember at some point I was like, it's going to be his life or mine. I'm going to end up going to prison for killing him out of self-defense. So I would always try to hide from him. And then I remember this one specific day we were walking and we went to a hospital, church, and I remember I asked God, I prayed and I was like, God, give me a sign. Like, I will fight so hard. I will take any consequence that I need to get my children back because I know I need to take accountability for my own actions. I'm still getting high. Like, I need help. Give me a sign to what's my next step in my life. Put people in my life to guide me where I need to go. So we're at this church and this nun comes up to me and gives me a flyer that has for pregnancy and free ultrasounds. And I was like, oh, well, thank you, but I'm not pregnant, like again, 98 pounds, like this is not for me. And so she puts her hands on my shoulder and she tells me, she's like, everything's gonna be fine and she's gonna be a girl. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then she just looks at my stomach and I was like, okay, this is weird. So after that incident, like I made an appointment at Planned Parenthood and they ended up telling me that I was pregnant. And I was like, okay, so I'm pregnant. I really need to stop using drugs. I need to get my life back, right? So I decided to quit my drugs cold turkey, but it made me very sick. So I went to the doctor and I told them the truth. I was scared to tell them the truth, but I told them the truth because I'm like, if I need to be helped, I need to be honest. And I told her, these are the drugs that I'm doing. And she's like, okay, well, we have to work with you and wean you off these drugs. And then I did not tell her that the guy I was with was beating on me, but she did see bruises and she asked me if I felt safe. And he was there, so I couldn't tell her the truth. And so it took 3 beatings after that for me to actually leave this guy. He beat me so many times that I ended up in the hospital. But the very last one was my third death, where I had already left him. I was like 4 months pregnant and I had already left him. And I said, I'm done. I can't, I need to protect my baby and I need to get my children back. And so I had left him, but he found where I was staying at. He broke in. I woke up to him choking me. And I remember it was like a back and forth thing. He was beating me. He beat me so many times, like kicking me, kneeing me, saying that he didn't want to have a stupid baby with me. And he ended up stabbing me 4 times. And so by the time the police, got in there, I had already like collapsed. And I remember that was my third death. I remember just feeling a lot of numbness, a lot of silence. Like I felt and saw nothing at that time. And again, feeling judged again. And I asked God, I was like, this was not my fault. I'm always like having a conversation with God, like, you knew I was trying to leave. You knew like I was trying to get out of there. Like, I'm like, is my baby gonna be okay? Like, I remember when I woke up in the ICU, I saw my mom, my sister, and my sister-in-law, they were crying. And they told me that I had to get a couple blood transfusions because I had lost a lot of blood and that I almost lost my baby. I had a neck brace. I could not move. I just felt a lot of pain. And the crazy thing about it, though, is that he did not get caught that day. He ended up getting caught like 3 days later. And he ended up going to prison for attempted murder and to the baby, too. He got 8 years in prison. And so, yeah, when I left him, when he went to prison and whatnot, I was homeless again. And I remember I was staying in a hotel, like under witness protection, because they didn't catch him immediately. So, um, while I was there, I was interviewed for a maternity home called 2911, which is after the Bible verse, Jeremiah 29:11. And when they interviewed me, they were like, we believe we can help you. We can help, you and your baby. And so I moved into their maternity home on Mother's Day. And when I went back there, it's a faith-based program. So I was like, this has to be a sign. When I asked God to give people in my life to guide me, he gave me people. He gave me 2911. They had morning daily devotionals. And then my roommate was like, do you want to come to church with me? I was like, I don't know. I had really bad experiences with religion. And she's like, just come for the coffee and the donuts. And I was like, okay, sure. So I went for the coffee and the donuts. And when I got there, it felt very comfortable. It felt very familiar. Like, I don't know, like I felt like accepted. And the name of the church was Riverview at the time, but it merged and now it's called City View. So I started going every Sunday. 2911. I was able to get sober. I was able to deliver my baby healthy, and I was able to bond with her. Like for the first time, I was able to like learn how to breastfeed my baby, how to sleep train her, and then I got my kids back. And yeah, so I got my kids back during COVID and I got my citizenship while I was there. I became a citizen January 2020. So I had my baby, I got sober, I got my kids back, and I thought, okay, this is great. My life, and then I was going to church. I was not like yet faithfully religious yet, but that was the beginning of my journey in my faith. 2019, going to 2911 and going to this church. So when COVID happened, I thought, okay, my life is gonna go great now. I'm sober, whatever. But then my ex-husband gets out of prison and we're still legally married. And he told me the story that things were gonna get better, that there was not gonna be drugs anymore, that we should work on our family. And I believed him. So he was playing house. He would come to my house. He bought us everything that we need. He was providing for us. Long story short, my ex-husband, I found out he was cheating on me. And it was who he was cheating on me with that messed me up. I ended up having a mental breakdown. I found out he was in a relationship with a man. Yeah. I was like, what? I've known him since I'm like 15 years old and I'm already 30. So that's 15 years. We're still legally married. He told me he wanted our family. We were doing so great, but to find out that he was in a relationship with a man, I did not know. I felt so much rage. I distanced myself from the church again because of COVID. We couldn't even go. And I called the crisis number. I was like, I need help. I'm about to relapse. I'm going through a lot. Okay, well, we can't move you into a house because your daughter is too old. We're gonna have to separate you guys. I was like, that can't happen. So I remember I called asking for help. I didn't know who to ask for help, but I did call multiple people and I was like, I'm gonna relapse. I'm gonna relapse. I'm going through a lot. I just didn't know how to share that he cheated on me with a man because I didn't want to expose him like that because of who he was and who he's affiliated with. So I kept that secret to myself to the point that I had a mental breakdown and I ended up relapsing. And it was bad because during that relapse, I started seeing some stuff that I to this day don't know if it was real or not. I had an experience where I thought I was like abducted by the Anunnaki and that they ended up harvesting my children, taking them somewhere safe. But the humans, the adults, they ended up chopping us up, harvesting our bodies, and taking us somewhere else. And it was just a weird trip that I had. Like my psychosis got so bad, and I was like, I can't allow this to happen. I'm gonna end up like not being able to come back from this. So then I remember I reached out to the lady from 2911. She's the owner of the whole organization. And I told her if she would take my baby, the one I had just had, if she could take her because I needed to get myself checked out. And so she took my daughter and my two other kids to go back into the system, into foster care, because I didn't know where else to play. I just needed my kids to be safe. And so once they were there, I checked myself into rehab again and I ended up doing something new. I was like, the drugs are not the issue. I use drugs because I lose myself mentally, so I need to fix what's going on here. So I got it myself into intensive therapy to address what was going on. And so I was able to, in 2000, the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, get myself the care that I needed. And I learned to do something that I never knew, which was to love myself. Um, I fell in love with me. I got to know who I was, and I was able to go back to church. I started going back to church again. And what I love about my church is that they never judged me. They never felt like you can't be here. You're using drugs. Like you lost your kids again. Like they never made me feel like that. They're like, wow, I'm so glad you're back. They welcomed me with so much love. And so I'm doing mental health, I'm doing rehab, and I start going back to church and I start getting my life back together. And then that's when I meet my now husband. I didn't meet him. We already knew each other since we were 13, but we reunited and we talked and he asked me to be his girlfriend. And I was like, look, I can't be your girlfriend right now. I'm in recovery. I need you to respect that I have to put my recovery first before I get into a relationship. He was like, that's fine. We can still date and I'll help you. And I was like, okay, cool. So he starts going with me to meetings. He starts taking me to visit my kids. He's pretty much helping me with all that I have to do, being very supportive. And then April 2021, I start going around my family again. It was my aunt's birthday. I see my grandfather and I was like, I noticed that he was weak, like he was like in a wheelchair or they were helping him walk around with a cane or something. And so I went up to my grandpa and I was like, I'm sorry that I haven't been around. I had to take care of myself. And he was like, no, that's fine. And then he was like, how are you feeling now? And I was like, I feel better. He's like, okay, because I have to tell you something. And I was like, all right, what's up? And my grandfather tells me that he has terminal cancer. And I was like, okay. And he's like, I need to know that with this news that you're going to be strong. I don't want you to go relapse or, I need you to be strong. I was like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. And I was like, so what are you going to do about it? Like, are you taking medication? He's like, nope. I signed a DNR. I don't want any. I saw what cancer did to your grandma, and I don't want the same thing for me. This was in May. My grandfather passed away in August. So in July of 2021, I remember I went to go visit him and I I saw him and he looked so yellow and his sugar was high. And I called my mom and I was like, whose turn was it to take care of my grandpa? He does not look so good. And so they ended up taking him to the hospital or whatnot. And I remember I had a weak moment and I ended up lapsing. I did not relapse, I lapsed. I used that one time and then I went to go visit my grandpa at the hospital and he he was so skinny and fragile and he had a bunch of bed sores and he didn't even recognize me. And I was like, I after that day that I saw him, I left and I was like, what am I doing with myself? I was doing so great. I can't keep using excuses to go and get high. My grandfather is going to die and I'm not going to be there if I keep using. So I had to make that decision. Am I going to go and keep using to cover up that hurt? Or am I going to just take that pain and be strong and be there for my grandpa while he dies? So I made the decision August 13th that that was it. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to get high because I need to be strong and I need to feel what I have to feel in life because that's what happens in life, right? Death is inevitable. So August 13th is my clean date. And then my grandpa passes away 10 days later. There was times I struggled a lot. I wanted to drink, I wanted to get high, but my now husband, he was very supportive and he took me to therapy. Obviously, I did a lot of EMDR therapy and I did therapy in TJ where they use psychedelic therapy, like psychedelic drugs with EMDR to address certain things. And in one of those trips that I had, I actually saw God. That was my first time actually feeling God's presence close to me. And so we were in this valley. We were in this valley that looked red. It looked kind of like the upside down from Stranger Things, like mountains were upside down. It looked like a red valley. And I remember not seeing him, but feeling his presence. I don't know about scripture like that. All I know is that that day I asked God, I was like, I need you to take my pain away. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to be a good mom. I want to be a good girlfriend. I want to be a good person. Like, what do you want from me? You let me live. Why? Who are you? Like, really, who are you? And God said to me, He said, I am who I am. I was like, what does that even mean? And he's like, I am who I am. And then he disappeared. And I was like, okay. And I just remember in that moment that I felt a hug, a warm hug, like that hug that I needed when I was a little girl, that protection that I needed. And I knew that that was God's love. And I was like, I don't know what I am, who I am means. All I know is that I felt your presence and I felt your love. And I know that my life is going to get better. And I trust you. So, sure enough, after that, I continued showing up at church and I started to feel a difference in my life. And then just last year, it was my son's birthday on Halloween. So my husband's cousin comes and she sees like my Halloween decorations or whatnot. And she's like, so how are you guys doing? And I was like, we're good. I'm like, I'm going to church. And she's like, okay, you go to church. So you consider yourself a Christian, a Catholic? And I was like, I don't consider myself anything. I just consider that I believe in God. And she's like, well, let me tell you something. God doesn't care about religion. What God wants is to have a relationship with you. And that day when she said that to me, I was like, you know what? I think that's what's missing in my life. Halloween last year, that's what she said to me. And her mom was walking around my whole house praying. And I was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I don't know what you're doing, but I feel a sense of goodness. Like, just keep doing what you're doing. So she kept praying, and her daughter's like, find a relationship with God. Jesus, that's all he wants. And I was like, okay. So then the day after that, I started to focus on that. And I told myself, like that's what I'm going to focus on right now is having a relationship with God. And so I pray every morning and I just ask for a closeness. And not only that, but I prayed for my husband because my husband was an atheist. My husband was a big time atheist. And today, my husband, if you sit down and have a conversation with him, he'll start preaching to you. And I'm just like, oh my God, here we go again. He'll make everything about Jesus. So let me tell you that. And then, like, if we ever start to have an argument, because I got him for Christmas, I got him a Bible and a men's devotional, he'll pick up his Bible And he's like, I'm not gonna sit here and argue with you. I'm gonna read my book. And I was like, you know what? And that's all I ever prayed for was like a healthy relationship where we both believe in God as our foundation. And we raise our children in that. And it breaks my heart sometimes because my older daughter, she told me, she's like, I have this feeling that makes me happy, but it also makes me sad because my little brother and my sisters get to have a better version of you than we did. And I was like, I'm really sorry that you feel like that. And she's like, it's not a bad thing because my little kids, because I have little kids, I have a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 2-year-old. They're growing up in a home where God is the center, and the mom and the dad are just, healthy and they do things without fighting, and there's no drugs, there's no drinking, there's nothing like what I was already exposed my other kids to and but despite all that, like my children love me and they respect me and I feel like I did a good job as a mom despite all my flaws because I always get very overstimulated because my kids get very loud around me and they're very hyper and happy and they share so many things with me. But then I realized I was like, they I provided something for my children that I didn't have, and that was a safe home, and that was trust and love, and that's a beautiful thing because everything that I wish that I had with my mom and my dad, I gave that to my children, and it's a beautiful thing. It hurts me sometimes because I still wonder to this day, like what I did to deserve what happened to me. And I forgave my mom. I never want to speak bad on her. I speak the truth, but I forgave her. God told me to. I understand that my mom went through her own things too. In her generation, they didn't have the help that we do. Unfortunately, my mom still struggles with her alcohol addiction, and I pray for her that one day she'll stop and she'll be able to find Jesus like we did too. And I still love my mom. I'm always gonna love her, just like I did with my dad, and forgive them like God told me to. But they did what they did for whatever reason, and it took me a long time to understand that my life was not about finding religion, like my dad exposed us to many of them, but like my husband's cousin said, it's about having a relationship with Jesus, which is something that I started to do last year. And ever since then, like it's been a lot easier for my life to be handled. Like I was an angry person. I was a very reactional person. Like if somebody gave me an attitude, I would gonna give, oh, you're gonna give me an attitude, I'm gonna give you an attitude back. Like people were afraid to approach me because I had so much anger inside of me. And now it's like I pray every single morning, and now it's like I'm a calm person. Like I don't let things bother me anymore because I trust God has a plan for me. Like at the program 29:11, that Bible verse has popped up in my life so many times, 29:11, Jeremiah 29:11. And I'm like, God really does have a plan for me. I went through all the things that I went through, and now I have the ability to understand people. I work at a reentry program, so I work with people who are in the system, and so I have the ability to understand where they're coming from because I've already gone through it. And you don't have to feel afraid to share with me because I know. You don't have to tell me, I already know, and that helps me help them to get to where they need to in life just by understanding and having that empathy. And so like I said, I've been sober for almost 5 years now, and I've been going to church. I have a relationship with Jesus now. I'm remarried. I have more kids. I have a good relationship with all of my kids, and I've been able to forgive all the people who have hurt me. And I have an education. I was able to finish school. I just got my first degree. I'm a counselor now for substances. And I plan to continue to do that, help others because I didn't have that help, obviously. So I want to be that voice. I want to be that person that helps and is there for people who have no one.
Wow, what a powerful, powerful testimony. This is the first time I've been speechless, just speechless, not able to ask any questions or think in between, Naniece. For those people who are probably going through what you're going through, how did you arrive at the conclusion that Jesus is really God? And talk to us a little bit about what you said your husband's cousin told you, that it's not about religion, but a relationship with God. Your whole life you went to religion, but you didn't know what was a relationship with God. What does that mean? And how is it different from religion?
So for me, I think what it is like I go to church and I found a good community of people, but what am I doing there? I'm just sitting there and I'm just connecting with people, but what am I really doing? Like I'm not building a connection with God. So when his cousin told me about finding a relationship with Jesus, it's about sitting there having conversations with God when you're praying and having that open line of connection, like trusting that God is going to take care of me. For example, when it comes to finances, right now my husband had a personal injury, like a physical injury, so I'm the sole provider of my family at the moment, and he just actually had surgery, which is why I was able to do the podcast today. He just had a spinal implant done, so I'm here taking care of him. So when it comes to finances, I could be stressing out and like, oh my God, what am I gonna do to pay the rent? What am I gonna do for the bills, for groceries or whatever? But I pray and I trust that God is gonna take care of us financially. There was a time where I was like, okay, this is coming up. How am I gonna handle this? And God's like, trust me, let me handle it. And I ended up getting my paycheck. I ended up getting my financial aid, everything. Oh, and then I got my taxes. And I was like, God comes through exactly when it needs to happen, not when it's my time, it's when it's God's timing. Same thing with my husband. Like he is still dealing with identity theft, and he needed to pay off some of his debts, and he was stressing out. And I was like, don't stress about it. Just leave it in God's hands and it'll be taken care of. And sure enough, his finances came through. Whether it's another example I'm going to use, my work. The beginning of this year, my position was being terminated. They told me that in order for me to keep my job there, I needed to become a counselor. So I registered and I became a counselor. And I was like, am I going to stress about being fired and not having a job to take care of my family? God, I'm the one providing. And I prayed and I asked God to open up opportunities to where I needed to be. It's not just about having a job and having financial stability, it's about where God needs me to be. And when that happened, I remember even at church, I put down on the prayer request, can you guys pray for me? This is what's going on. 2 weeks later, I ended up getting 3 job offers, the one at my job and 2 other places, including the place that I always dreamed to work at. So these opportunities all come to me because I am trusting God with everything. And it's not just halfway there, like you're either all in or you're not. You can't just say, I'm going to let you take care of this, but I'm going to handle this by myself. You have to trust God's going to handle everything. And I know that God is real because even in my darkest times, even in the times that I, for example, being a kid and being exposed to all the things that my dad put us to, I could have been one of those kids that gets sacrificed and gets harvested for my organs. God protected me and had kept me alive for a reason. Um, when I was the times that I experienced my deaths, I wasn't alone. I could have easily just given out, but I knew God was around and He was fighting for me. And just everything, and even when it came to my kids, like I just know that God, and then like I said, when I had my psychedelic experience through therapy, when I spoke to God and He said that He is who He is, God was there. And I felt it's not something that you can see, it's something that you feel. It's something that you feel like you can't just, it's kind of like when you tell somebody you love them, you don't just feel the love because they say, oh, I love you. You feel that they love you because it's a feeling that you feel in your heart. It's the same thing with God. Like, when he came to me and said he is who he is and he left, I felt his love. I've been feeling his love. The more I have surrendered and the more I have accepted that God is my savior, I have felt like it's not about human needs, it's about spiritual. That's what I need to be feeding myself, the spiritually what God wants to give me. And plus it helped my husband too because he's not an atheist anymore.
Yeah, praise God. That is so good. What's the best thing that has happened to you, Naniece, as a result of following God?
The best thing that has happened to me is just the mental stability, being able to not like live a normal life, but just being able to surround myself around other people that believe in God, like my church family. Like That's the best thing that has happened to me is being around other people who are pushing me and helping me grow in my faith.
That's so good. Praise God. Praise God. And who is Jesus to you?
Everything. My father, my brother, my best friend, my confidant, like everything. Like I cannot live without Jesus. It's like I have these little baby Jesuses that one of my church friends gave us. And I literally went around my work. Everybody in their cubicle has a little baby Jesus and stuff. Like Jesus is everything.
Praise God, sister. Praise God. Okay, if you watched her testimony so far, I know that you're serious. And if you seriously want to consider Jesus or invite him into your heart, I'm going to invite you to say this little prayer after me. We have an audacious goal here at the Supernatural Truth, and that's 1 billion souls for Jesus. So just repeat after me. Heavenly Father, I am a sinner. Forgive me for my sins. Lord Jesus, I invite you into my heart to be my personal Lord and Savior. I believe you died on the cross for me, and through your blood, today I am free. Thank you, Jesus, for being the Lord of my life. If you said that prayer, type in the chat, in the comments, I said that prayer. And we're going to start counting. We're going to start counting until we hit our goal of 1 billion souls for Jesus. It's an audacious goal, but God can make all things possible. If you love this testimony, you want to watch the next testimony, it's coming up on the screen. Carol, she was into witchcraft. She was also an OnlyFans model. And then something shifts, and you're going to hear that story where she actually meets the enemy and meets God. That testimony coming up on the screen right now. If not, check the link in the description. I'll see you in the next video.